There, our chair recording has started, so you can kick off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this hybrid meeting of the Swansea Bay City Region Joint Scrutiny Committee on Tuesday, 7th of November, 2025. I'm Councillor Bowen and I'll be chairing the meeting. We all know
October, not November.
Oh, sorry, Chair. I think I've given you the wrong.
Yeah, you
wrong
have.
month. I do apologise. Right. That's my fault.
I didn't notice that either. 7th of October, 2025. We all know the house rules. If you could keep your phones off, please, and if you could raise your electronic hand when you need to speak, and we'll fetch you in. For the purpose of declarations, I would like to confirm that we will scrutinise items 4 to 8. We've had 2 apologies from Councillor Mike Lewis and from Councillor Cundy. We'll now move on to item 2, declarations of interest. Is there any declarations, please?
I see no declarations of interest, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We move on to agenda item 3, minutes of the previous meeting, on pages 3 to 20 of the agenda pack. Has anybody got any questions? And if not, could I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
I'll propose them.
Could I have a seconder, please?
A second.
Thank you very much. So we'll take those minutes as being approved. Okay, Tom?
Yep, that's right, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item 4, campus project change request, pages 21 to 36. Keith Lloyd and Claire Henson. Over to you, please.
Oh, thank you very much, Councillor, for the opportunity to present today. My strapline says I'm in Swansea Bay Health Board. That's just where I am today. I'm actually based in Swansea University and the SRO for the campuses project. So thank you very much. The change request is there. It's been through the other committees previously. And I'll just hand over to Claire, if that's all right, just to run through the change request, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, our change request went through the committees in the summer of this year, which have all been approved. So it was a change for the Morrison Hospital renovation space for innovation opportunities for medical companies. One question that has arisen that Tom has passed on is the costs relating to why a new build would be cheaper than actually doing the renovation work. So we explored the costs for the renovation work, and they were obviously significantly greater than the City Deal funding that we were receiving. The other output of the project is a new build within Scrutiny Lane. So we looked at the opportunity of bringing both together, which is what we have done through this change request. So the innovation space in the management centre is now going to be rehoused into the Scrutiny Lane, which actually very cleverly brings them both together and allows sports and medtech companies to be housed collectively with our athletes and also again with our clinicians that sit closely to the hospital. So we've really seen all opportunities and brought that collectively together. Yeah.
And just to add to that, the Health Board has, in your pack, you'll see there's a letter of support from the Health Board that they are supportive of this change, from Darren Griffiths as Director of Finance and Strategy. And just to reassure members, the outputs and deliverables of the project remain unchanged. And the other element that was in phase 1 is the submission of the planning application as part of a hybrid application at Morriston for the access route to Morriston, which unlocks the larger site there. And that was approved. Some councillors may know that was approved by planning either last month or the month before. So that's still going ahead as well. And in fact, it's a public engagement event for that at Morriston on the 9th of October, which is 2 days from today. So there's an event where people can go and see what's going on up there and the plans for subsequent health campus developments up there, which will, in addition to helping us deliver the outputs and deliverables from this project, which are unchanged, as I say, also improve the access to Morriston and hopefully bring benefits to local residents too.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I believe we got a couple of questions for the officers. Councillor Hawley?
Yeah, thanks very much, and thanks for the report. I think there's a couple of questions. One, what difference will this make to the Scrutiny campus with the amount of people that are going to be there? Obviously, there is going to be, I'm assuming that the planning consent has already been agreed for the change of use within the building, if there has been a change of use. But I'm concerned about the fact that how many additional people will be there as opposed to when the original plan was put forward. The same applies in Morriston, because both these sites are saturated by cars. Whether we like it or not, public transport is what the preferred option is, but because of various other issues, public transport is, to put it bluntly, diabolical to both these locations. So there are loads and loads of cars. I don't know how many people have been to Morriston Hospital lately, but the multi-storey car park that was built to cure the problem is full all the time. And the bottom car park, which is about half a mile away from A&E, maybe a bit more, up a very steep hill or down a steep hill, depending on which way you look at it, that tends to get filled up as well. So I think that those are the two questions I have at the moment. What the planning obviously has been undertaken about the change of use, about the change of the option to take it down to Singleton as opposed to having it in Morriston, and what the effect on transport is going to be in numbers.
Sure. So we have yes, the planning's been agreed for Singleton, and yes, it's been based on the usage that is being proposed. The Section 106 agreement has been agreed with the council for Singleton. There was a condition about a pedestrian crossing, and that's included in the costs. There's sufficient parking being allocated for the users of that site, as we believe. In terms of Morriston, obviously many of the questions that you're raising will be for the health board rather than for the campus's project. But part of the reason we agreed with the health board that from a university perspective, we would work with them on the hybrid planning application for the new developments proposed up at Morriston is because part of that is the access road, which will do exactly what you said, which is help improve access from the M4. And you'd have to take up with the health board about what their plans are for improving parking. I know in the medium term at Singleton, they have proposals for improving the parking down there. That's the update I can give you, Councillor, at this stage.
Okay, thank you. The only other question I would have, obviously everybody understands that refurbishment can work out a bit more expensive than new build, especially if you've got to incorporate the land value. So that's really the question, is about what value do we have? What is the value in the refurbishment in Morriston? Was it down to the fact the material costs, or was it down to any other costs, like the rerouting of anything within that area? So because there's constant building going on in Morriston, and I'm wondering, it just seems to be a bit strange that it's going to cost more to refurbish it, and I'm wondering what parts of that were to be refurbished. You may not know that answer. I may have to ask someone else, but if it's possible.
It would probably be a question for estates at Swansea Bay. But as you said quite correctly, the site is actually saturated. So in effect, we are taking a little bit of traffic away from that site, albeit a minimal amount. Claire, I don't know if you can say anything about where the additional costs lay. I know there's asbestos and various other issues, but
yeah, they were. It was quite an old building that needed to be renovated. So obviously working with our partners in the health board and specialist cost consultants that looked in it, and we have obviously very detailed costs of what's come to light. And yeah, because of construction costs, it was just generally the whole renovation. It was nothing specifically to do with kind of diversions or any additional electricals that we had to put in. It was just the renovation cost of the building itself.
Okay, thank you. So I'm assuming at some stage that building's going to have to be renovated, and someone else will have to pick up the bill for that at some stage in the future. That's fair enough. I understand that. Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else got any questions they'd like to ask? No. Thank you, and to Keith and Claire. This report is for information, so we note the report.
Thank
Moving
you.
on. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 5, digital infrastructure progress update, pages 37 to 62. And this is, I believe, Rebecca.
Real quick. Hi, no, I'm Deidre Oliver. I'm one of the project
Sorry,
managers.
yes, sorry. It's Gareth and Deidre, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, my apologies.
Okay. I'm just all right, Chair, if I can just share my screen to go through a presentation that we prepared for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be lovely, thank you.
Sorry, bear with me. I've got 2 screens going on here. 2 seconds. But I could just check that everybody can see that.
Yeah, fine,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Go. Yeah. There we go. Okay.
Okay, so we can't see you anymore, so we'll take questions at the end if that's okay. So we're just going to give you a quick update of where the programme's at. The aspirations of the programme right there on the screen for you. It's really important through the programme's work that we ensure everybody gets improved broadband, and that's something we'll discuss through our rural work stream. Smart region ready to and able to innovate, adopting emerging technology is being addressed primarily through connected places and our next gen wireless work stream, and then the inclusive digital landscape kind of cross cuts through everything. So how are we progressing in terms of coverage? So we are seeing across every county an increase in the fibre footprint, so people are getting access to better broadband. But what it is important to recognise is that superfast figures have remained relatively static, particularly in our more rural counties of Pembrokeshire and Carmarthenshire, which are at 95% and 93% respectively. Whereas in Swansea and Neath, Talbot, superfast figures are pretty good, 99%. So most people in those counties have got access to reasonably decent broadband as it stands, maybe not gigabit capable yet. But if you're one of those few hundred people, it's really frustrating when you've got poor broadband. So we're looking to address that through our rural work stream, and I'll come on to that in a moment. Similarly with the mobile figures, they don't look like they move much, but through the shared rural network, we saw an uplift of between 7 and 8% across Pembrokeshire, Carmarthenshire and Neath, Talbot in reducing the number of partial not spots. And also there's been a reduction in the places where you've got absolutely no mobile coverage at all. Again, it's slightly different within more urban areas. It's not so much coverage related, it's more down to congestion on the network. And again, we can discuss that when we come on to our next gen wireless work stream. So from a rural perspective, it's the largest spend within the programme. We designed our Better Broadband Infill project was targeting where the gaps remain within the region. So there is an awful lot of work going on to address connectivity, both commercially and through larger scale interventions such as UK government's Project Gigabit, and Welsh Government have also got planned extending high-speed broadband Wales. So we did a huge data analysis looking at every premise, both residential and business, to understand what their connectivity looks like today and what it's going to look like within the next couple of years. And we identified a total of 2,363 premises that met that criteria. We put the contract out for that. We've successfully awarded it to BT. They will address 1,533, so that's 65% of the remaining gaps will be addressed through this project. It's £9.87 million project, and with additional gap funding from BT, that brings it over to just over 10 million, and it will be delivered between now and the end of our programme in March 27. That's what it looks like in terms of where those particular areas will be built to. We are in the process of going through a change notice on this. There were 22 premises at the beginning of the contract that are no longer eligible. And that's actually a good news story there. It's because they're now in a commercial plan. So it will slightly reduce, but not by a huge amount. And I'll hand over to Gareth to connect to this.
Thanks, teacher. So as a programme, we deliver our work over 3 work streams. Teacher's just covered the rural work stream, which, as the name suggests, targeting our more rural and hardest to reach premises. Our other work stream is Connected Places, and this is all about driving gigabit capable and improved connectivity across our economic growth zones, driving that inward investment, and also connecting key public sector sites across the region to ensure that they have the connectivity, or rather the future-proof connectivity they need to be able to drive forward their digital transformation agendas and also support them with providing quality public services. We have 3 projects in delivery over this work stream. So the first one is our full fibre infrastructure build. Now, this is delivered in partnership with BT via the PSBA, the Public Sector Broadband Aggregation, which essentially is a Welsh Government programme collaboration with BT. And it's a wide area network that all public sector organisations in Wales connect to. They get their connectivity through the PSBA. And this project was all about upgrading 69 public sector sites across the region to full fibre connectivity. This was a project with just under £2 million worth of investment. And this was primarily targeting sites that what we class as what they call white, which means that there's no plans for the commercial market to go there in the next 3 years, to ensure that they have the connectivity they need to provide, as I said, provide quality public services. So these contained places such as leisure centres, libraries, community health centres, and also a number of key council buildings as well. The project ran for 2 years. It concluded last week, I believe, at the end of September, and it has now delivered in full, and some key sites in there as well were connectivity to Pembrey Country Park and Margam Country Park. Both sites have been plagued with poor connectivity historically. So driving this investment there has ensured that they have future-proof connectivity to allow them now to be able to retire some legacy services, provide some cost savings, and also trial some new and innovative use cases at the sites in order to improve visitor experiences. And then running alongside that, we've got 2 dark fibre projects. So the first is our Dark Fibre East project. This is delivered in partnership with Virgin Media O2. And this is connecting 37 really strategic sites across Swansea, Llanelli and Neath, Talbot to a dedicated dark fibre network. For those of you who don't know, a dark fibre network is essentially a dedicated unlit fibre network that essentially has unlimited capacity in terms of bandwidth. It really is only throttled by the equipment that you put on either end of it. And it's there to, again, future-proof connectivity, but more importantly, help and support drive innovation across the public sector when it comes to digital transformation and improve collaboration between partners. The benefactors of this project include Swansea and Neath councils, but also the Health Board and the university. So Morrison Hospital, Singleton Hospital, both universities have sites included in this project, which will really improve collaboration between health and education, especially when it comes to research and development. And each of the organisations have what we call an IRU, an indefeasible right of use, to use that infrastructure for 25 years. And then as a result of that project, as you saw, that was an investment of just under 1.3 million. So it did come in quite a bit under budget, which meant that we did have some funding left over to run a second dark fibre network. And this was at the request of our partners, board members and public sector partners, for a similar network across Carmarthenshire, targeting 32 sites across Carmarthen, Ammanford and Llanelli, with the same benefits, as I mentioned on the last slide again, future-proofing, driving innovation and improving that collaboration. But this also has introduced a new competitor into the region. ITS Technology Group are what we call an alternative network provider. This is the first time that they've come into Wales, and it now means that they're building an additional network across the region, which also stimulates competition, which is good for us in terms of competitiveness. Moving on to the next work stream. So as the name suggests, this is all about improving and accelerating the rollout of 4G and 5G connectivity across the region, working with industry and both governments, and also supporting innovation, utilising wireless technology across some key sectors, primarily priority sectors aligned with the City deal. So the sort of flagship project, if you will, that we have under this work stream is our 5G Innovation Fund. This is a grant fund aimed at supporting interventions that promote the development and scale adoption of 5G to deliver specific use cases that utilise 5G to drive innovation and accelerate adoption of advanced digital applications. The fund, it's a pot of £2.5 million. It's open to public sector and private sector organisations, and we have a cap of 1.6 million per award. To date, we've awarded just over 1.5 million to the Campuses project, so that they're doing in collaboration with Vodafone, and that is building and upgrading 5G infrastructure around Swansea to fund a world-first research and innovation environment that then harnesses that 5G infrastructure to improve population health and well-being. And the focus on that particular project with them is the development of new sensors and devices, things that can monitor in real time the vitals of users and patients, improve quality of life, monitor physical and mental well-being, and also reduce the burden on the NHS. Vodafone have also committed to bring over £440,000 of additional private sector investment to upgrade the public 5G network as well, which will reap benefits for the residents of Swansea and the wider region. We are also working with a number of other organisations in terms of initial conversations around exploring some use cases around agri-tech, health and wellbeing, and also some early conversations due next week with the Celtic Freeports as well. We also support other interventions that sort of fall under this work stream. So these are all external, the first two there are all external that we support with. So as DJ mentioned at the start, the Shared Rural Network was a programme with joint investment between UK government and industry to tackle total and partial 4G hotspots across the UK's most rural areas. For us as a programme and as a region, Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire have been a significant beneficiary of this, as you probably saw from the change in stats at the start there. Around 22 new masts have gone up across Carmarthenshire, which equates to around an investment of £11 million. And that really has seen a significant uplift in 4G coverage across the region, which is positive for us and also for our residents and communities. We also have our 4G, 5G public sector assets project, which our digital champions, which DJ will come on to in a bit more detail on the next slide, are working on in Swansea and Neath Talbot around making public sector and council assets available for mobile network operators to deploy their infrastructure on there to alleviate capacity issues on the network, which is something that we see, or industry is seeing as more of an issue in our urban areas. And then finally, we have our Digital Innovation Network, which is our network of LoRaWAN gateways that we deploy across the region that are taken forward by our local authority partners. And this is a network of 240 gateways that they can then use to trial use cases using LoRaWAN sensors, gather data, and then they can use that data to inform operational efficiencies and cost savings across the public sector. Some use cases that those sensors are being used for are things like smart bins monitoring, entry and exit capacity at car parks, and also tackling antisocial behaviour issues, which is something Carmarthenshire County Council are doing in collaboration with Dublin Powers Police. I'll hand over back to Disha.
Okay, so our digital champions really critical actually to the overall delivery of the programme and us meeting our objectives. So within each local authority, we funded 2 resources. We've got our digital connectivity relationship managers, and they primarily work across internal key internal departments such as planning, highways, legal, with industry and government to try and break down any barriers that are kind of raising challenges when it comes to deploying infrastructure. So they've been really effective in doing a lot of the work that Gareth's talked around, so enabling programmes such as the shared rural networking, making sure that open access agreements are in place, as well as for supporting with the delivery of our own projects under both the dark fibre and the infill project within our rural work stream. And then our broadband engagement officers are much more public facing. They work with our communities and businesses, they run drop-in sessions, and they're there to provide some support and advice, let people know about alternative technology that might support them whilst they're waiting for improved connectivity, and funding opportunities such as the Access Broadband Cymru scheme. But going back to my point earlier about the availability of gigabit capable broadband and how it varies across each county, one of the really key parts of their roles is the data analysis piece. So they are continually monitoring the digital landscape, and they're able then to carry out proactive, targeted engagement to support people. And I would encourage you to reach out to them if you have anybody within your communities who are really struggling at the moment. And they have been recognised as we're the first region in Wales to adopt this approach, and they have been recognised as an exemplar from Welsh Government. And job descriptions are available on the Welsh Government website. And then communication and engagement. So there's a lot going on with the programme, and it's really important that we get the right messages out to our residents and businesses, and also to continue to attract inward investment from both industry and government. So we have a resources section on our website, which has got some educational animations that's used by our broadband engagement officers at their drop-in sessions, but it's obviously there as a resource as well. And we make sure that that is available through all of our digital platforms. We've also done some really nice case studies about the impact of when a community or a business does receive improved broadband. And we've done some additional case studies around the complexities of the delivery of infrastructure within the region, whether that's mobile or fixed. And all of that is available on our website. We also run an annual event. We've had our second event this year. The first year it was focusing around 5G and some of the concerns people were raising around health. This year we focus more around the delivery of our own projects and navigating a pathway to better connectivity. Next year we're not going to do an industry-facing event. We're going to hold some more localised events in each of the counties, bringing together various groups who are addressing digital. So it's not purely focused on connectivity, but we're bringing in people from skills, inclusion, accessibility, people from leisure, just letting people know how they can use technology across different areas. And we'll be running each of those in each county, and then wrapping up the programme when we end in March 27 with a final event just to talk through some of the lessons learned and some of the challenges we faced along the way.
There we go. Okay, we are coming to the end now. So just wanted to run through also our benefits impact assessment. So as part of our benefits realisation process on our programme, we have commissioned Farpoint, who are a leading digital consultancy organisation in the field of digital infrastructure, to undertake annual benefits investment reports for us to quantify the level of inward investment in digital infrastructure across the region, as well as undertaking the final economic evaluation for our programme when it concludes in its current form at the end of March 2027. So we started these reports back in 2021, and as I said, we do them on an annual basis. It is dependent on certain information that we need to get from Ofcom, so we're always a bit of a year behind in terms of when we report, but that's simply as a result of the data being available when it is. But to date, the total amount of inward investment the region has benefited from, both public and private and City Deal, is just over £107 million. Now, as you can see on the right, a big proportion of that comes from the private sector, just over 91 million, and then 16.4 million from the public sector. We do expect these numbers to continue increasing year on year, but the public sector figure we are expecting to increase quite a lot now as we ramp into being significant beneficiaries of UK government's Project Gigabit, which is their flagship programme to improve gigabit-capable connectivity across the UK's most rural areas, and that will be running up until 2032. And then the figure at the bottom there, that is the programme's projected increase in regional GVA over 15 years up to the end of the City Deal in 2033. We did undertake a midterm economic evaluation last year to inform a decision to reallocate some funding between the Connected Places and the Rural Workstream to support with that project, and to ensure that that didn't have a negative effect on our projected GVA projection, which at the original business case was 318 million. As a result of that exercise, we actually now projected to increase it by an extra 13 million, and a big proportion of that is sort of as a result of the barrier busting, the barrier removal, de-risking work that ourselves as the regional team, but also the work that the local and digital champions do in each of the local authorities in terms of removing those barriers internally to accelerate the rollout of infrastructure. And finally, we are, as we speak, actually, we are in the middle of a gateway review. Today's the second day of the review. We had our last review in October 23. We're given a green amber assessment rating and action all the recommendations from there. We're in the middle of the next one now. We've asked the review team to focus primarily on the programme's continuity and sustainability moving forward, the impact of the programme's resources and the digital champions, as we mentioned, and also looking at the remaining challenges and opportunities that we have as a programme to make sure that we continue to maximise the opportunities coming our way. And finally, this is a strapline that we always finish on, connectivity through collaboration. We can't do what we do without working with our partners, without working with government, industry, to really drive that forward. And I think by working together is the way that we really maximise all opportunities coming our way. Talking about, thank you. I'll stop sharing so we can see you all and then take some questions.
Okay, thank you very much for them. The presentation by the both of you, much appreciated. Yeah, we have got a couple of questions. I'll go over to Councillor Sparks first, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting, and it's good to see the progress laid out like that. I wanted to ask you very parochial sort of question about my own lived experience, Gareth, with my Wi-Fi and my 4G connection. So I'm not sure if you know, but I live in Carmarthen, and in the house in Johnstown I can't get a signal. The phone signal is very poor for 4G. That's just behind the Friends Arms there, down by Old St Clair's Road. Very poor signal there, and that's in the town. And also, if I go into town on King Street, I struggle to get signal along King Street as well. 4G. I'm lucky to get 1 bar. But if I go and walk the dog at Greencastle Woods, I can get 5G in the car park there, and it's just a bit peculiar to me. Is that could you maybe explain a little bit about that? And then separately, operate business out of Park Pensarn, up by Burns, behind Morrison's, and the BT engineer told me that the Wi-Fi won't improve up here until the line to the substation is improved between the industry units up here and the substation, which was 1.5 kilometres away. So how are we overcoming those types of barriers to enable businesses to improve their connectivity? I have to restrict. I'm very lucky today the camera and the microphone are working together, and unfortunately I have to turn my camera off quite a lot of time, or fortunately, depending on who else is on the line. It saves them having to see me, but anyway, and that's because of the poor connectivity. I can't share, again, I'm sorry, Chair, that I'm being very specific, but I can't share my Wi-Fi access code with my customers so they can access Wi-Fi up here, because I'm just danger that the whole system will crash on me. So how are we modernising Carmarthen town, specifically its industrial areas and the residential ones, to bring it up to speed with Greencastle Woods, please? Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Gareth. But thanks for the presentation. I appreciate there's a lot of detail there in my question, Chair. Thank you.
I'll cover off the broadband side of things first, if that's okay. So I've actually got it open right in front of me. We have a premise level data set that gives us an idea of exactly who's doing what, where, when, whether it's through commercial plans or whether it's through an intervention such as our own, or if there's a voucher scheme or if Project Gigabit are coming. And I completely appreciate that while you're waiting for that, it's incredibly frustrating, which is where potentially solutions that can be funded through the Access Broadband Cymru scheme can come into play. And we can support you with understanding what that looks like. I won't look specifically at your address now, but I'm more than happy to pick that up offline if you want to give me the details, and I can let you know exactly what's happening. But our broadband engagement officers, they use this. This is the Bible that they work from, and they do it to do a ward analysis as well, so that we're able to give you that ward level detail and let you know exactly what's happening for all the different people within your communities, as well as at a county level. So just reach out to us when you've got those kind of really specific granular inquiries, because we can tell you it isn't always the good news you want to hear. And I know that's frustrating, but there is so much going on in this space in terms of subsidy. So Project Gigabit is delivering to over 17,000 poorly connected homes in our region at the moment. Like I say, our infill is addressing the less than 30, so the people who've got really bad broadband, we're targeting 65%, but we know there's still more to do, and that's where this data really plays a part. And we're able then to feed that through to Welsh Government for their Extending High Speed Broadband Wales programme, and also feed that through to future call-offs, potential call-offs against UK Government's Project Gigabit. So we are doing all we can, but we're completely driven by the data. Where we can't really make any difference is when a premise has been identified as in a commercial build. That is then something that public money can't support. But we can find out who the supplier is that's delivering it, and we can try and ascertain what they're doing. And if there is any barriers, we can try and unlock those again through the barrier busting groups that we've got in place.
Mm-hmm. And on the, thank you, Oscar Black. Oh, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, just, I mean, if I can come in quickly, Gareth, sorry, thank you. Thank you for that. That was really helpful. I mean, in terms of the general question about Carmarthen, it just feels like, you know, we've got a market town of 14,000 people, and it doesn't get well connected by you know, well, I don't think I've ever picked up a 5G signal in Carmarthen on my phone, and it's 5G enabled. I mean, unless I'm wrong. I mean, you'd know if I was wrong, I think. So could you correct me if I am wrong? But I know I also live in Carmarthen. Go on, sorry.
I also live in Carmarthen, so Castle Spark, so I feel your pain on that front. I think it varies depending on what network provider you were with. Look, we work with industry quite closely, especially our digital champions in each of the local authorities. The DCRMs work very closely because their work programme is very much aligned to the Next Gen Wireless workstream about improving 4G and 5G coverage. It's for us, the programme, it's a little bit more difficult in terms of data that's available to understand where those hotspots are. With fibre, they have what's known as the National Rolling Open Market Review data that all the fibre suppliers feed into on a quarterly, am I right in saying quarterly?
It's quarterly.
Quarterly basis to tell us where they're going to invest. With mobile, no such data is available, and it's a lot more difficult to identify sometimes where the market failure is. So it requires a lot more ongoing engagement with the network providers and also for the communities via the digital champions to identify where those issues are in order for us then to be able to lobby and work with the providers to try and get them to provide some solutions there. One of the things that we're doing, as I mentioned, is getting things like open access agreements in place so they can utilise council-owned infrastructure to plug the gap in some of those areas, deploying what we call small cells, because especially in more urban areas, you know, you don't want to be checking, you know, when it's a capacity issue, you don't want to be checking big macro sites up around a town, but you can chuck these sort of shoebox size small cell devices on existing infrastructure. They sort of blend in the background, but they again extend the coverage. It can also sometimes be just simply because of the topography of certain regions as well, where the buildings are placed and, you know, what's in the surrounding vicinity. So it is a little bit more difficult with mobile, but rest assured we are engaging with them as often as we can. There is talks of what we call an SRM2 programme. So the next phase of the SRM programme with UK government and industry to continue to plug those remaining gaps, because we acknowledge there still are gaps and there will be, but we are in continuing conversation with them to try and lobby them where we can, get those open access agreements in place to make it as easy and sort of incentivize them to bring that investment in here, because based on the engagement we have with industry, if we make it easy for them to deploy, if we remove barriers, they'll bring that investment. If we don't, they made it quite clear they'll take the investment elsewhere. So we do everything we can to remove barriers to address issues such as that where we can.
So can I come back in again, Chair? Is that okay?
Yeah, fine.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for that, Gareth. So then can I just clarify then, I'm right, am I, that the Carmarthen is quite a weak area in terms of signal strength, a not spot for network access? And who should I be lobbying to try and help improve the signal and support the work that you're doing to try and change that, please?
So, sorry, do you want to?
I was just going to say, on the 4G and the 5G coverage, so 5G at the moment, there are very few parts of the UK who've got true standalone 5G. So even when your phone says 5G, it's not true 5G. There's very small rollout of that yet. When it comes to the 4G coverage, that was that was addressed through the shared rural network. And like I say, the first phase has been dealt with, and that was looking at primarily areas where there were partial not spots and total not spots, but in quite rural areas, which obviously wouldn't have included Carmarthen Town. With the mobile side of the programme, well, the mobile side in general, it is driven by the commercial market when it comes to areas like towns. So if they don't recognise that there's an issue on their network, or they do, but they recognise it's a bigger issue somewhere else, it's quite difficult to get them to invest. But what we can do is just keep raising the profile of it as much as possible. But like Gareth said, we just don't have access to the same level of data that we do for broadband. But the shared rural network too will continue to address coverage issues, capacity issues. At the moment, the focus from the mobile network operator side is more in a really busy urban city centre areas. So we've had an investment on that side for Swansea, but I would say it's unlikely we're going to get an investment for Carmarthen Town in the near future. But if we have an open access agreement in place, which enables them to use our public sector assets to deploy that infrastructure, when the mobile network operators do roll it out, we'll be best positioned to take that forward. And that's really as far as we can take it at the moment as a programme. Which is possibly not the answer you wanted.
No, it sounds like I'm not going to wake up tomorrow with 5G, but there we are. Never mind. I'll get over it. And it does remind me that I shouldn't maybe spend quite so much time on my phone as I do, you know. But there we are. So it might reduce my usage. Thank you very much for your patience with me this afternoon. Thank you, Chair.
No problem.
Excellent answers.
I think you've asked quite a few questions, Russell, and the answers that some of us were going to ask. Sonia, do you want to come in at all?
Yeah, thanks. Certainly covered information that I wanted to know, but I just wondered, building on that, whether there were, I realise it's network dependent, the 4 and 5G, but whether there were any maps of coverage for the region, either by network or in general or anything like that.
That's something we do struggle with. We are working at we're trying to get better information from Ofcom in terms of what does that look like on a map. We have percentage coverage, but we don't know where the actual issues lie. So it's something, it's not specific to our region either. That's been asked by a lot of different local authorities across the UK. There are independent companies which will map that data for you, but it's quite expensive. And the challenge we have there is when we've got access to that data, what can we do with it that's going to make a true difference when it's actually going to cost us money to map it in the first place? Because the mobile network operators, they know where the issues lie within their own networks. All we're doing is presenting information they already know. And if there isn't an appetite for them to invest, I'm not sure what more that data would do other than bring it to our own attention where our own issues are. So it's something we'd really like access to, and it's something we've been lobbying for as well, is better data when it comes to the mobile coverage side of things.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to ask one question before we finish on this topic. Are we finding that some suppliers are investing more in their networks than others? Because I'm with one supplier and they were very good. Now I can't even get a signal when I'm sitting in the house. So are we finding that, you know, we got a top 2 or the top 3 that are investing more?
Actually, through the shared rural network, as the name would suggest, one of the things we're really pushing for moving forwards is shared infrastructure, to remove the amount of infrastructure within the landscape, whether that's in urban areas or within the countryside. So I don't have the exact figures for which mobile network operators are investing more within the region, and it does vary between areas quite radically. I moved to Vodafone and I regret it for the area I live in. I'm sure if I lived somewhere else it would be better. But actually, no, I think the bigger push we would like to see, if we can get shared infrastructure, it reduces the costs for everybody involved. It reduces the operational costs for the mobile network operators, and it improves the user experience regardless of your chosen provider. So that's something I think everybody's keen to see more of.
Okay, that's lovely. I think we've exhausted the questions on this, and thank you everybody who's put their input into it. Really great debate. I'd like to thank the both of you for your presentation, and this report is for information, so we note the report. Moving on to item 6, Q1 25-26 Swansea Bay City deal portfolio, pages 63 to 142. Over to you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Chair. If I start, as I usually do, with the dashboard information first, it's probably worth noting to all members as well that this is Q1 reporting, so it is April to June, so start of April to the end of June. So this is a few months out of date. I will drop a few bits and pieces in on conversation, which isn't in the report, but just gives you a flavour for where we are with some of the projects. So if I start with the RAG status, so the red, amber, green status, the only change to note is around Pentra Owl. So the finance increased to an amber from a green, and that was largely down to the future funding models for both the assisted living and the hotel phases currently being explored by Carmarthenshire Council. And then there's there's the final contract sum anticipated, which should have happened by now. That's yet to be reported with the Bouygues tier 1 contractors. So there's a few bits and pieces in there around finances, hence why that moved to an amber. It's all being managed as you would expect. There was also lease agreements and fit out work for Hywel Dda and Swansea University, so they were factored as part of that as well. If I move then on to the portfolio risks and the issues, there's currently no change during this quarter. The red risks remain 3, and that is increased construction cost, projects programs not delivering to outcomes within the business case, and the 10-15 issue or risk. And then the 3 red issues are in-year variance, variance and delivery across the projects and programs against key milestones between now and 2033, and rising construction costs. So those risks remain constant between the period for Q4 last year and Q1 this year. If anybody does put their hand up, I can see you all, but I might not see you. So if you just give me a shout if you do want to ask any questions en route. In terms of portfolio benefits, so we've talked in previous meetings, making sure that you have dashboard information. So what you currently have is the usual benefit summary, both the target and where we are with the target for investment and jobs. So jobs increased between the quarters from 896 to 912, largely around the increase with Campuses project. And investment on this report remained constant, which was 536 million from the previous quarter, because Q1 financials were not reported through City Deal governance. They weren't ready in time for the July board because the timing of the meetings. So Stephen has recently collated those reports, and they will be going through governance. So you will receive Q1 report in the next meeting. From a procurement perspective, there's minimal change since Q1. So I'm going to pause there, Chair, and then I'll go on to the highlights of projects and programs in case anybody has any questions on the dashboard.
Okay. Anybody like to jump in with some questions before we move on? Yeah, Councillor Hawley.
I have to say, I'm really concerned about the jobs summary as well, and the benefits summary. It lags a long way behind, doesn't it? And I know you've got to say there's another 3 months to go into these figures, but we are still a long way off, aren't we? And it's this GVA figures as well. I'm not sure where they get them all from. I know they're supposed to use a British standard, some sort of standard, to calculate what the GVA is, but it's still concerning. I think it's concerned just not me, but I think it concerns a lot of people. The jobs realization is nowhere like the original hype, and I know we've got a few years to go yet, but it's still the same, and that's the thing that worries me. Thank you.
So just to put it into context, I share, or not share, but recognise the concern, and other members have said this in the past, but we've created about a tenth of jobs created to date. But as I've said in previous meetings, they're largely construction related or operational related of those infrastructure which have been created and now are built, occupied, etc. So as we keep on saying there, or I keep on saying, there is a lag, but we will be getting more jobs created through the pipeline. These are incremental by quarter that we're seeing, and we will continue to see those incremental changes until the evaluations start coming through. So, so acknowledging your concern, we will report jobs created as quickly as we can and as robustly as we can, because everything has to be auditable. So there's that. But investment is increasing, even though it's not reported yet. Investment is going up. We just heard alone just from digital, they're on track. In fact, they're going to supersede some of their targets. And we know that some of the other projects for the stuff coming through the pipeline are doing the same sort of thing, but they need to be reported and you to have visibility on those.
You happy with that, Chris? Okay, Councillor Morgan.
Chair. Yeah, no, just to come in on that point, I did tie it in with the annual report to date, and I could see that the job figures have gone up to 112. Just want to come in, Jonathan, on the apprenticeship side of things. Obviously, the end of year report reported 230 have been created. Going through each of the pages on the report up to June, I think you said it was, I counted up to 528, which is a quite significant increase. No, I don't know whether all of those are verified, so that's my question really. Have we seen an increase of that amount, and are they full-blown apprenticeship jobs?
So everything that we report is verifiable or auditable, so they are accurate. Apprenticeships were one of those other indicators that we had where there was a lag, and how it was reported took some time to actually get that into place. And again, I think it would have been, I can't remember if it was earlier this year, when Skills came and presented how many apprenticeships. So they went back and made sure that they captured all of the apprenticeships that were associated with City Deal more robustly, to make sure that we could see those coming through the pipeline. So again, from feedback we've had from Scrutiny and from governance and governments, we make sure that we try and provide those as quickly as we can. That's why you saw the increase. But there are plans as well for future apprenticeships to make sure that I think it was 2,200 target, that is met over the period of delivery for the next year or two with the programme.
Okay, so I mean, to take from that, then perhaps it was underrepresented before then, is it?
Yeah,
because I can see the skills.
But I would say
for once, I'm positive. I agree with Chris. The overall picture, we always say we'd like to see more, but that's a significant increase. So it is. Good to
but
see
I think
more
jobs are underrepresented as well, Councillor, because I know for a fact we have more jobs created. We just can't report them through governance in a robust way until they have to be in existence for a year, because that's what our definition is. A full-time equivalent, they have to have existed for a year. They have to be as permanent as a job can be. So we know that there are jobs created that haven't been reported yet, as we had with the apprenticeships, but they are starting to come through the pipeline. Yeah.
Well, I'd rather it reported like that than his finger in the air stuff. So yeah, let's get the facts. But
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. You're happy with all that? Anybody got any more questions? No. Okay, Johnson, if you'd like to carry on.
Yeah, thank you very much. So what I'll do now, you've got, as you always do on every quarter, the detail, if you like, of each project and programme, the 9 headline business cases. So I'll just go through highlights, if you like, of some of them, not every single one of them. Otherwise, we might be here for quite some time. But if I start with support innovation, low carbon growth. So the Bay Technology Centre is now 81% occupied within the quarter. There's several leads progressing, so hopefully they'll get towards the 100% occupancy that they want to achieve. The Advanced Manufacturing Production Facility, so the land acquisition is now complete, and during the quarter they also had an award from the Talbot Steel Transition Board Fund to help create the Advanced Manufacturing Production Facility, and the National Net Zero Centre of Excellence. So both of those are located at Harbourside. There was a funding gap. That has now been closed with a £12.5 million from Tata Steel Transition Board. So again, different pots of government funding and organisations working together to make sure that things are being delivered, which is fantastic to see. Skills and talent programme. So as of last quarter or quarter one, there were 25 pilot projects. 4 apprenticeship skills development projects have been also approved by the RLSP board. They're the body that oversee the skills and talent programme. So again, progressing very well with that. And this is another example, and we will get this reported formally through governance, but skills and talent are overachieving on private sector leveraged investment through a lot of these apprenticeships and pilot projects that we're having. So we should see that now starting to come through formally in coming quarters. If I move on to Pentre Owl, I mentioned that the finance moved from green to amber and the reasons why. So the completion and handover of Zone 1, which is now called Canolvan, that was programmed in July. That has happened. This is one of the additional things that I wanted to share with you. So Canolvan is complete. The doors will be open to the public a week tomorrow. So that's the 15th in the afternoon. So if you were passing by and wanted to have a look in there, you should be able to have a look in Canolvan from the 15th in the afternoon onwards. And there's lots of information in there around what we have achieved in terms of contractual commitments to person weeks of training and various things like that, and how many apprenticeships. And Councillor, when you said earlier on about how many apprenticeships, that one had 69, I think, apprenticeships and 72 new entrants. They had trainees, work experience placements, graduates. So all of those should be documented in the quarterly report for Pentre Owl. But all very good stuff with the tier 1 contractor and their supply chain. I'm not going to update on digital infrastructure. I think what Deja and Gareth presented was very thorough and good. Waterfront, the hotel, the heads of terms are still they're with the hotel development heads of terms. So it's agreed in principle, but there's been a delay to that. They're still subject to confirmation around the funding terms and the due diligence around with the hotelier as well. So that's still underway. The Kingsway, you would have in your report, had an event scheduled for the 3rd of July for the opening event. That happened. So that was very successful. And what's happening between then and now is fit out for the companies that are residing in there and trying to get the rest of it with tenants and collaborators in there. Bit of good news around Innovation Matrix. The building is 100% occupied and it's doing what I said it would do, probably and more. And again, some of those activities that will be undertaken within the building, but also around the building within the region, those should start being reported. University of Wales Trinity St David's are the new delivery organisation. So internally, they're capturing all the benefits associated with the building, the occupancy and the tenants and all the collaborations that happen as a result of that. Egging is not much to update really, other than it's still 100% occupied down in Egging. The solution for Egging Phase 2 is yet to be determined, and we will go through the change control process once University of Wales Trinity St David determine their course of action for that. Homes as power stations, the only update on that, they're progressing all the different strands of what they got, but what they put out in the last quarter was a call for the supply chain development grant. So it's £7.5 million of funding for businesses to apply for to help shape and develop manufacturing of technology that can go into homes to decarbonise them. So what happened as a consequence, and again this will come through reporting, is that there were applicants. None of them had been successful. So they are liaising with our private sector advisory board to look at how they can put that call back out and what business needs there are to make sure that they get the grant allocated to businesses to help develop the supply chain within the region. So that work is currently underway. It will be reported in coming months. Pembroke Marine, we did change the senior responsible owner, so that's Richard Brown, the assistant chief exec, as a side point. And what they're focusing on for the port is around what they call the Pembroke infrastructure. So there's one further lot that they need to procure, and that's what they call the transportation corridor, for those who have been down there. And they're looking at options around the marine renewable energy industry to check what they need to develop aligned to business need. So they're still in the process of doing that. They hope to get a response for that around Q2 2025 financial year. Q2 of the financial year. So hopefully within coming months now we'll find out what the plan is for Lot 3. Campuses, the main update really for campuses was around the change request that you scrutinised just now with Keith Lloyd and Claire Henson, and planning was submitted to Swansea Council in March. The decision was in July, as Keith updated the board. That went through with no issues. And Chair, I think that is the coverage of the 9 projects and programmes. So I'm happy to take any questions or observations.
Yeah, I got one question, please, Jonathan, and it's on the HAPs. It is.
Yeah.
We've seen these demo houses now, but we don't seem to see any of social houses now, being done in the block that, right, they spending this type of money on. We got work going on up in the village now where they just put in solar panels on all these houses. There's nothing else being done. Yeah. So can we get something, possibility of Una coming in and giving us a bit of an update on this of, where we are, that houses are all going to be done in blocks and not just a solar panel or a heat pump or heat source pump, I'd like to know a little bit more of what's happening, because there's a lot of money being spent on these demo houses and nothing moving forward.
We're happy to invite Una into a future meeting. That's absolutely fine. And Una can provide you, so that there's 3 strands to the HAPS project. So the first one is all about the incentivisation fund, working with registered social landlords, housing stock of local authorities, and the pipeline of activity around that. So I think that's one good update. And then the supply chain fund, by the time it may come back, there's probably a good update on that. And then the other one is about the monitoring of the technologies in the homes. But, the whole point of this is to hopefully invigorate the demand of innovation within the homes, but it's also to help reduce the costs of these things, to make it affordable for all of us to buy and for landlords to implement in the homes. But it's about the supply chains as well. So whether it's the supply chain of manufacturing or the installation or the maintenance, all of those will create jobs, they'll create economic impact, etc. So there's multiple strands at play, but absolutely, Chair, we can invite Una and the team in.
Yeah, because a lot of this is out of reach of, a local, a homeowner, talking £60,000 just to save £600 a year on, electric. It's way out of our comfort zone, basically. So yeah, I'd like a little bit more back on it if possible, please.
I'll also ask Una about the savings, whether it's the CO2 savings or the health benefits and the cost savings, just to give a feel for what they've learned on that as well. I think that'd be useful.
Yeah, lovely, thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions they'd like to ask, please? No? Right, we'll move on then. This report is for information, so we know the report. Moving on to item 7, Swansea-based city deal. Audit statement of accounts 24-25, pages 143 to 112. Stephen?
Hi, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. So this is the pre-audit statement of accounts for 24-25, and for some context, Carmarthenshire County Council, as the accountable body, is responsible for the financial stewardship of the city deal, and it's the 5th year the joint committee has had to compile a statement of accounts. So, as I said, this is you viewing the pre-audit statement of accounts. However, the statement has since been audited by Audit Wales, and they made no recommendations or changes to the statement. So the final statement is going to be presented to joint committee along with Audit Wales report on the 21st of this month, I believe, for approval. And then upon completion, I will circulate the link to this committee. So as you can see, the report is very comprehensive. Every year it's a similar report. So I'll take the report as read, but I'll highlight a few of the main areas today, but please feel free to stop me with any questions or observations. So I'll start on page 7 of the statement. I think it's 151 of the report pack. You can see that here that the overall estimated investment position of the portfolio is now 1.374 billion over the 15-year life cycle of the portfolio. Comparing this to the original budget, this is about 98 million, a positive overinvestment for the city deal. Moving on to page 14, this shows the outturn of the joint committee. You've probably noticed that it resulted in a deficit of 439,000 for the year, but I can reassure you this is purely down to a timing issue of the top slice we generate from distributing the grant to the partners of the city deal. The portfolio investment fund can be found on page 15 of the statement. Here it shows that we received in the year 34 million of the grant award. So this included the increase of 10.9 million from the UK government, who are front loading some of the remaining grant. So of this, we distributed 22.3 million to the partners. So this left our reserves. Obviously, we had more income, more grant received in the year than we actually paid out. So this resulted in our reserves being higher at year end to about 65.6 million, up from about 54 in the previous year. So just to give you some context, most capital programs don't follow a straight line of expenditure, so it's quite acceptable to have some level of reserves. And from the profiles we received from the partners, much of our reserves are going to be utilised in years 9 to 11, that's 26 to 29 of the portfolio anyway. So the actual financial statements themselves, they start on page 26 of the statement, and it begins with the comprehensive income and expenditure statement on page 27. So this shows all the income and expenditure received and incurred by the joint committee throughout the year. And so it represents the accounting cost of the service and shows a surplus of 11.2 million. Again, this is, as I mentioned earlier, we had 34 million in, we gave out 22.3 million. So that's essentially where that balance came from. And that leads on to the balance sheets. So the balance sheet shows our total reserves, but in there you can see we have some short-term debtors, so of about 155,000. So this refers to top slices of the outstanding partner claims, which we received after the year end for Q4. So there's 3.9 million worth of Q4 claims received in after year end. So that's the top slice. It comes from that 3.9 million. Page 30, we have the cash flow statement. It just shows how cash and cash equivalents are generated and applied by the joint committee. But probably for more information, the notes start on page 31. So these notes provide further information and allows comparison with previous years. So I think it's about 16 or so notes. So I'll just touch on a few of them. So Note 1 shows the employee costs of the Portfolio Management Office, and you've probably noticed it's lower this year, in 24-25 than it was the previous year. This is because we have 2 vacancies within the team. So it's a PMO manager and the project development manager. Note 2 shows the office cost for the team at the Beacon. So Note 4, supplies and services. So there's a line in here called projects and activities, which we use to include the interest earned on the cash balances of the city deal. So of that 65 million, we earned interest throughout the year, and that was about 2.55 million compared to the previous year of 2.77 million. So this interest we pay out to partners, which then in turn helps them offset some of the pressures they are facing with their rising costs. So the interest earned was less than the previous years because the base interest rates have been reducing throughout the year, and again we're projecting a lower base rate going forward as well. Income on note 6. So the partner contributions of 50,000 per year came to an end in 22-23. So we're now purely reliant on top size contributions from the partners, distribution of the grant to the partners to fund the joint committee and the portfolio management office. Again, you can see it's less than the previous year, but then again, it's purely due to the timing of the issue of the grant expenditure. Note 7, quite an interesting one. This shows the related party material transactions between the partners of the city deal. So money we've paid out and any invoices we've received from them as a city deal. Debtors, as I mentioned earlier, £155,000 for other local authorities, and that again relates to the top slice for the Q4 claims. Creditors, 3.9 million in there from other local authorities. Again, that relates to the Q4 claims we received after year end. And then there are some small other short-term creditors. They are outstanding invoices at year end, and some of those include the Audit Wales invoices. Note 13, reserves. So as I said, there's a reserve, and we're in deficit of 439,000 in the year, but we had reserves from the previous financial year. So that offsets some of the 439,000. So that's left us with a shortfall of 256,000 at year end. But again, as I said, it's purely timing issue of the top slice generated. I think that's it from the notes, really. So after the notes in the statement, we move on to the annual governance statement, and that starts on page 40 of the statement. So the Joint Committee is responsible for ensuring its business is conducted in accordance with law and proper standards, and they must ensure that the public money is safeguarded and properly accounted for. So this annual governance statement details how this is achieved and the responsibilities of the key roles within it. And finally, I think on page 54 is the scope and the results of the internal audit conducted. So the audit concluded with an audit assurance rating of substantial, which is the highest rating they will give. So I think those were the main points I wanted to highlight today, Chair, and I'm open for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Would anybody got any questions, please? No, can't see any.
Thank you.
So this report is for information, so we know the report. Moving on to item 8, City Deal Portfolio Annual Report 24-25. Jonathan?
Thanks, Chair. So it's probably worth noting this is our 5th iteration of our annual report. It's an opportunity, as it always has been, to celebrate achievements and milestones. The period of which we're looking at or focusing on is April 24 to March 25. It's also to reinforce the importance of City Deal and what it means to our region and economy, and also provide an insight of what will happen during the current financial year, as it's noted in each of the projects as to what they plan to do. So the content and wording was approved in May through our governance boards. The annual report is available on our website, both in an accessible format and the format that you've just received as board members. It's probably worth noting a few things. We try to balance as much as we can with information. There's information overload in these type of reports. This is a hefty report, but all the information is one place. So what we've tried to do is condense it all into ensuring that it contains project updates from the last financial year, broken down by project, but it also shows key milestones of what they achieve in this current financial year. So that's how the format is provided on each project. What we did this year to try and condense it a little bit more was to provide interactive links, so QR codes with a hyperlink, so that if anybody wanted to read a bit more information about the project, because we wanted to try and remove the static information, if you like, from the report, people then would be referenced to the website with current information around the detail of what each project and programme is there for and to deliver. But each project and programme have the headline targets, what they're aiming to achieve still within this report. Since we launched this new City Deal website, we are starting to utilize that better through news items and case studies and project updates. So again, that link between the annual report and the website is really important. The one page is probably worth highlighting is page 5. That's benefits, but it's benefits to date. So since the portfolio started, and again, there's lots more under the hood, if you like, within the projects and programs, but that just provides things like the headline stuff that you see at these boards, things like total investment, private sector investment, jobs created, apprenticeship opportunities are in there as well, how much floor space has been created, etc. Within that section, it's probably worth noting that even though this is an annual report and we are talking about large infrastructure-based projects, there's still a lot to do. So we've highlighted in there that 6 projects at this point in time, at the end of March this year, 6 projects have been completed, worth around 210 million. 19 are in delivery or the build stages of delivery, amounting to around 761 million. And then 14 projects are still in pre-delivery, and the value of that is around 400 million. So even though we've achieved a lot, we're in the pipeline with a lot of stuff, there's still a lot to do with the City Deal over the next few years. So every project has what we call an in-focus piece. These are more qualitative case study type things, just to give a flavour for what it is. It's trying to bring it to life. It's all well and good me providing all the stats that I just did to you, but well, what does that mean to people and projects and businesses, etc.? So we try to provide these in-focus pieces. So hopefully that came through if you had a chance to read it all. This year, for the first time, we've dedicated a tenants page. So in the report, there were 40 plus tenants we have now across the infrastructure of City Deal. So again, it's trying to draw out, well, what does the infrastructure contain? You know, what type of businesses and stuff like that. So we know now those tenants are into probably close to 70 tenants in total across the infrastructure. But at least in that financial year, you can see where we are for that. I mentioned the website. There's an in-focus piece on page 57 around the website. So if you haven't had a chance to go, visit our website in recent times, please have a look at that and feedback, any comments on how we could improve. That would be brilliant. We also created an animation that we're using and sharing with lots of partners and at events. So we've done an in-focus piece on that, and that's on page 58. So it's how will the City Deal benefit me? So it's on the homepage of our website. And again, the link is there if anybody would like to go and see that. So Chair, I'm not going to go through every single section, but the flow of what I've said, the content, and the period of what we're looking at is broadly what I've just covered. I'm happy to take any questions or observations or anything that we could do for this current financial year to do the annual report come the end of March 26.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Has anybody got any questions? No, can't see any. Oh, sorry,
No.
Councillor Sparks.
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I nearly missed it there, but here I am. Thank you, Jonathan, for the summary. Thanks, Chair, for the opportunity to ask a question. So I just wanted to raise a question, Jonathan, about the report and the at the beginning where you've got the summary and it talks about the 9,000 jobs, 1.8 to 2.4 billion investment. And the next page, which is page 218 of our pack, it's got the 1 billion of additional gross value added.
Yeah.
Can I take it back to, in a way, to Stephen's item in the last thing where we were talking about the public investment, the private investment, and the money? So that, am I right? And please remind me, correct me if I'm wrong, which I often am. The 1 billion figure is hard to quantify in terms of GVA, and it doesn't relate to a specific amount of public or private money. But those financial statements in the last item, we could show audited, like where that money has come from. And
Yeah, so
am I right on that? And sorry, just not to cut you off, but if Stephen's also said about it being top loaded now and sent through, if we're getting 372 million total investment, how much in total now, where are we with that? And are we at a point where we can start to think of efficiencies in terms of some of this regional strategic work that's happening here that we're doing, and also the parallel work that CJC is doing for the region, which overlaps a lot of the content of this. There's a question for the 3:20 in the afternoon.
I'll do my best to answer. So what the page I think you're referring to is in 3 different colors. So there's a dark blue, light blue, and a green. They are the themes, the 3 themes of the city deal. But the first figure is total investment. So that is public, private, and city deal funds wrapped up in a total investment figure. That is what Stephen has referred to, and that is partly what we monitor for the quarterly monitoring for financials. So they're aligned against that. The next item down is about additional gross value added. So what we agreed with the governments with gross value added, even though those is still a valid macroeconomic indicator, attribution to city deal infrastructure is sometimes difficult. Not all the way, not always, but sometimes. So we said we would look at economic impact, which could include gross value added, as long as we can attribute it. So the 1.08 billion is not about the investment, the direct investment for or a direct return investment around the city deal infrastructure. Those are the total investment figures to refer to. So I think I've answered that part. The second part, it goes without saying, when Corporate Joint Committee and the economic development, economic well-being, the links with planning, land use, the stuff around transport, these are all synergistic, without a doubt. Jobs created, infrastructure, investment, business growth, they're all very much synergistic. So yes, they will hopefully converge from a city deal and Corporate Joint Committee to make sure that things aren't joined up now. All the relevant partners involved in the delivery of a city deal are still relevant and part of the Corporate Joint Committee. So I think it's just a transition side of things to make sure that this is encompassed, and all the city deal projects aren't meant to be just building a building, they're meant to catalyse things. So what will happen in future phases for Swansea City Centre developments, or the stuff down in Pentre Owl, or things around Morriston hospital expansion or potential expansion, all those things are still synergistic, as they are for the ports with down in Pembroke and with Neath for Talbot around Freeport. So hopefully this will be part of that economic regeneration story that we've got for City Deal, which will be a legacy and a catalyst for those.
So, like the operational costs of the office for Swansea Bay City Deal and the operational costs for CJC, we can start to think about those, the synergies coming together there as well, can we? Because it feels, bluntly, it feels like maybe possibly we're running two organizations when we could run one.
Yeah, I'm not the best person to answer that question. Wendy Walters, the chief executive, Chris
I fully appreciate that. Sorry, Jonathan, I'm raising it.
Yeah. But the direction of travel and the options appraisal that's gone through governance, that is the direction of travel. What comes through that in detail is yet to be determined. Yeah. But what you said makes logical sense in that. Yeah.
Thank you. And I appreciate it's a sensitive question to ask, but I think, I think it would be inappropriate. I wouldn't feel appropriate. I think it needs to be asked at this point now with the where we are with the delivery. Taking into account all sensitivities. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Chris?
Yeah, what Russell said is basically what I was going to ask about the direction of travel. As we all know, that's going the same way. It's just about CJC 6 over from the City Deal. What sort of timescale are we looking at? And obviously, I'm not going to ask the same question he did about the future of the various sections of it. But what I would like to know is, what are we looking at, in timescales?
I'm not 100% certain, Stephen. I don't know if you have any timescales, but I would imagine we would have movement within this financial year. To what extent that movement is, Councillor, I couldn't honestly tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Stephen, would you?
If I could add something, they're looking to appoint a chief operating officer for the CJC. The process is being undertaken now, so maybe when that post is filled, that might then catalyze the merge more. But I think the difficulty is, I think there's two separate legal entities from my understanding, so there's some complexities around that. And I'm obviously an accountant, not a lawyer, but so there's more things in play. It's just not as simple as just merging the two, from my understanding.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, is this something that perhaps in the next meeting we could ask Craig to come in and give us a bit of information on, Jonathan?
I don't see why not. You know, there's quite a few people involved. Wendy being the chief exec, and there's Craig as the monitoring officer. There's Chris Moore, section 151. But yeah, we can ask that question. Yeah.
Yeah, would the members be okay with that? If we have someone in, just give us a bit more of a background on it. Yeah.
No problem. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Russell?
Yeah, Chair, sorry. Maybe we could write a letter to Wendy Walters and ask for some clarification over the, you know, the direction of travel that she envisages with this. Only as she's the current lead on it, right? Before, as Stephen's mentioned, this new officer is appointed for the CJC. If we maybe wrote a letter, or if you did it on our behalf, Chair, that might be a way of communicating.
Okay, I'll sort that out with Tom. We'll get that sorted. Okay, thank you. If there's no more questions on this then, report is for information, so we know the report. Moving on to item 9, forward work programme for 25-26. Do members have any suggestions, or Tom, if you could give us a brief outline, please?
Thank you, Chair. So as I mentioned in pre-briefing, you know, we tend to follow the reports that go into CJC anyway, so those are quite set. In relation to other things going on in the background, I know members were quite keen to see if an arrangement could be made for a site visit to Swansea Arena. So that's something I'll take back with officers. But obviously, I note from just now, Chair, the request for a letter to Wendy to ask about the direction of travel. So that's something that we can send from yourself, and whether or not that's appropriate to ask Craig to come, or whether maybe Wendy's letter will sort of set in motion something on that. But as you said, Chair, if any members have got any other suggestions or any requests, myself or the Chair can make a note of those and see what we can do to add those to the forward work programme as well.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else got any suggestions? If not, I'd like to thank everybody, all the officers and all the members for attending today, and it's been quite a nice debate actually. Item 10, urgent items. We don't have any, so I'll call the meeting to an end, and thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hi all.
Yeah.